Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. Hey, health junkies. I'm Dr. Jannine Krause. I'm the host of the Health Fix podcast. On this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I'm interviewing Dr. Greg Eckel. He's a naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist, and he's the nation's leading naturopathic physician in brain regeneration. And he's known for his integrative and regenerative approaches to Parkinson's and neurodegenerative conditions. For over 2 decades, he has been focused on helping patients understand and address the biological drivers of neurodegeneration rather than relying on symptom management. So, if you or anyone you know is dealing with Parkinson's, has a neurodegenerative condition, this episode is for you. Dr. Eckel was on my podcast about 5 years ago, and he's come a long way in his research, and he's moved from Portland, Oregon, all the way to Park City, Utah, to work with his wife now and specialize in neurodegenerative conditions. He has the Eckel protocol, and he's working with all kinds of staff to help folks on the fitness, the mindset, and so much more that goes along with neurodegenerative conditions. He's not about band-aids. He's about getting to the root of what's going on and getting things back restored. So brain regeneration is what we're talking all about today. So let's reintroduce you to Dr. Greg Eckel. Dr. Greg Eckel, welcome back to the Health Fix podcast.
Thanks for having me back.
My goodness, it's been, last time I talked to you, it was like right before COVID hit. And wow. I was in New Jersey and getting all my training for some acupuncture things. And now it's like, wow, life has changed so much since we last talked. And you are now out of Oregon and over into Utah, I believe.
That is correct. I'm coming at you from Park City, Utah. Migrated from the great Northwest and, a little bit more central, a little bit easier to get to for folks on the East Coast. That's for sure.
Yeah. With daily Salt Lake flights from most places. Not
That's
too
right.
shabby. Yeah. And of course, if someone's an outdoor person, we got skiing, we got biking, we got hiking. I mean, you are in the mecca of all the good things.
It is, I raised my family in the Northwest. I love the Pacific Northwest, and it was time for a change for this guy. And the mountains were calling. I'm 6 minutes from hiking, biking, all of those things. I'm actually fresh back from hiking Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. Kitty, my wife, and I just did that 19,341 foot peak, the highest mountain in the continent of Africa. And I credit a lot of our prep work here at Elevation in Park City to helping with that. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I bet that helped. Holy cow. How was it? Like, I'm curious. I know a lot of people do it, and I've never actually got to sit down with someone and be like, what was your favorite part? Like, what?
I was just telling some of my staff this morning, it's first day back in, and it was the color of the sky right before the sun rose. The sparkling of the stars there are not words to put into the awe. Like, it's where awe or inspiration comes from. That's what I felt like as we were hiking. We got up at midnight and we hit the summit at 8 a.m. That's the top of the mountain. Then we had to get back down. But right before dawn, that sparkle of the stars was really so intense. I love that part of it. Yeah.
Oh man. See, those are the things, like, you can't capture that on a video or even a picture. That is like forever in your memory, which is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool. So for folks who are interested in hiking Kilimanjaro, you're like, yes, absolutely do it. And what kind of training?
It's interesting. So I did hypoxic training. So I'm at about 6,000 feet here in Park City. A lot of Olympians and top performers come to Elevation to train. but we actually did hypoxic training, so 15 minutes twice a day for 30 days prior, where we cut our pulse oxygen down to 80%. So measuring on pulse ox, 80% oxygen, which is kind of similar to what happens at elevation. There's still the same oxygen concentration. It's just the pressure is different, so you don't get as much oxygen into your blood. That was helpful. Now, I did put this in up-and-coming therapies in my Defying Parkinson's book, which it increases erythropoietin. Erythropoietin, it kind of stimulates red blood cells, which is the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. So there is research on hypoxic training for brain neuroregeneration. So for neurogenesis, creating new neurons in the brain. So we did, and the study's not done. I did a little case series on Kitty and myself. We did mitochondria testing, blood work before, and PNOE, so looking at VO2 max. Then we did midpoint mitochondria blood work, looking at reticulocyte count, erythropoietin, and then at the end, a full panel of blood work, another VO2 max, and a mitochondria test. So I'm going to put that together in a white paper. Yeah, sure. It's a N of 2, but looking at, okay, well, what kind of effect can just 30 days of hypoxic training do for erythropoietin and reticulocyte count, which increases red blood cells so that as you go up in elevation, you have more oxygen carrying capacity. Oxygen feeds the brain. So it was kind of a twofold, kind of fun little science experiment on ourselves, but also in the grand scheme of things to really look, hey, is this something that we want to put in for folks when we're talking about how do you regenerate your brain?
I was hoping you'd say something about that. I was hoping that was going to come out because, it's something that, circulation, being an acupuncturist, and you know all about this as well. It's like circulation is the master, right? And thinking about oxygen and how can we provoke more circulation. I think an N of 2 is better than an N of 0. So why not?
That is correct. You got to start somewhere. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the reasons why, of course, we want to be thinking about adventures like Kilimanjaro or even just going hiking in some higher altitude. Why not? Also a reason to visit you in Park City, as we have it. That's
would
now
love
established. So I think I could develop your whole travel division of your practice now. So all that being said, let's dive in a little bit to this whole thing of Parkinson's, dementia, blood sugar, how much of these things, if we're weighing it out, because this is kind of one of the big questions that I get too. Is it toxins? Is it blood sugar? Is it both? Is it, what are all the things? What do we need to be thinking about?
Sure. So this is the kind of the topic du jour as we're seeing an aging population, right? Some are calling it the silver tsunami, with the baby boomers moving into their later stages of life. And so then there's the children of the boomers that are watching their parents maybe develop some cognitive decline. The stats on this are staggering. By 2030, it's predicted half of the population over 65 years old will develop some type of cognitive impairment, mild cognitive impairment, dementia, Alzheimer's. So, and then the rates of Parkinson's and other neurodegenerative conditions are on the rise. What is going on with this, right? So it's scary. There's not a lot of good news there. Now, happens to be my topic, and what we're really into is how do you regenerate the brain? We have found 3 big buckets really for all neurodegeneration. So you've got environmental toxicity, which we'll unpack. You have trauma, mental, emotional, physical, and ancestral, which has made it a little bit more broad and difficult to get into. And then you've got infections. So you've got molecular mimicry with viruses, bacteria, and then there's mold, Lyme disease, these things that can affect cognition and the brain. So all three, it's usually multifactorial. And, a lot of people are calling Alzheimer's diabetes of the brain. I would put that in environmental toxicity of those three big buckets, and we can talk about that of like, well, how do you assess, what do you need to get done? Because currently, it's horrible. Like I'm seeing young 60-year-olds given the diagnosis of Alzheimer's said, go get your affairs in order. And it's quite depressing if that comes up for you. But, the glimmer of hope or the silver lining is there is a lot to be done that are the low-hanging fruit that everybody listening can really get into. And it's the non-sexy stuff. So we've got the three big buckets. We can talk about testing and what goes into all three of those, how we assess it. And then what can we do when we discover what's creating or what's at cause? What's the root imbalance here for us?
Yeah, let's do it. Dive into all of them, please, awesome. For all of the listeners.
Awesome. Well, let's start with environmental toxicity. So which is always an uplifting topic to start with. I remember as a student in the late 90s getting into environmental medicine, and it was like, geez, this is depressing. Like we're swimming in a toxic soup. Now, the good news is we're human beings and we're very resilient, we're adaptable, and we have a lot of ingenuity. So there are a lot of things to look at here. Now, I don't want our listeners and viewers walking around thinking they're toxic. Now, that said, when you look at, let's just take pesticides. So glyphosate, big news, Bayer paying out billions of dollars for on cancer cases with glyphosate. Glyphosate is a pesticide. It's actually even used in organic wheat on the harvest. So it's not made in manufacturing, but as they harvest the wheat, they get a higher yield if they put glyphosate on it. Which is just not right. It's like, wow, they're finding glyphosate in Cheerios. So children eating breakfast cereals, which I do not recommend actually because of the diabetes of the brain and also there's levels of toxicity. Paraquat is another one. The U.S. is the last nation to allow paraquat to be used in farming. Vermont just banned it. I hope that other states follow suit. It has been banned worldwide. Gosh, I was just reading an article of illegal grow farms in California for marijuana, pot, that are importing chemicals from China to raise the outdoor marijuana, which is then getting into medicinal marijuana. And it's like, wow, kind of buyer beware here of, I know some folks have medical marijuana cards and think, hey, this is a botanical medicine. But if it's not organic or certified and they're not even testing for these chemicals. So that's one. Those are pesticides. There is TCE, trichloroethylene. This is a product in dry cleaning, big concentration around the Great Lakes, down the Mississippi, Camp Lejeune in South Carolina. There's a lot of cases for cancer and Parkinson's coming off of that military base. Because of trichloroethylene. Not causative, but correlative, adding into the body burden, creating neurotoxicity. Living close to a golf course, higher incidence of Parkinson's. Well, what's that? That's pesticides from the golf course getting into the water supply. Now, that said, all of those things are water soluble. So you're able to detox. So one of the things over the last 25 years of my practice is really focused on the terrain of, how hospitable is your body? So there are a lot of things that you can do to prep your body. So number one, if you are overweight, you are storing toxins in your fat. And that's a slow burn, leads to inflammation, leads to insulin insensitivity, so that diabesity of the brain. And you're carrying those toxins. So you've got to address that. When we look at metabolic dysfunction, that's driving a lot of this brain neurodegeneration. So, metabolic dysfunction, what does that mean? It means your hormones aren't working well. It means your liver isn't processing or detoxing well. Possibly you have methylation issues, like with the MTHFR gene, which about 30 to 40% of the population has one copy of that. Less have two, but that's like limiting your detox pathways. So you've got to assess that. And we assess that with looking at the clearance of the liver. Phase 1 and phase 2 route of elimination. It's called the cytochrome P450 cycle, for those fact finders out there. But there's a phase 1 and a phase 2. Sulfation, glucuronidation, sulfation, ways the body detoxes. So looking at simple things like sauna, the statistics on sauna are really phenomenal. It's just getting in the sauna, getting your body hot, and sweating. That's important. Being well hydrated. So making sure you're drinking half your body weight in ounces of water. A lot of people aren't doing that because their sleep is off, or for men, their prostate is enlarged and they're having to pee a lot, or women have the itsy bitsy bladder syndrome of having to pee a lot. Pelvic floor dysfunction. So all of these things get layered in that first category of environmental toxicity. Then you look at, sugars, we'll call it the white death. Sugar consumption in North America is off the chart. So looking at your hemoglobin A1C, which is your 3-month window of your sugars, looking at insulin sensitivity, looking at your fasting glucose. So these come on just general panels, so you can get that in a general blood work, but you want to make sure that you're not pre-diabetic, and that you are eating whole foods. There's a comment, you're not going to supplement your way out of a bag of potato chips. So we really need to look at seed oils. I mean, so much so on the diet front, I reluctantly had to create the Eckel diet. I did put it in Defying Parkinson's. While that topic or title of the book is specific for Parkinson's, it really outlines the Eckel protocol for brain regeneration. I picked on Parkinson's, but it goes for Alzheimer's, dementia, all of the other neurodegenerative states, because I'm treating people, not conditions or disease processes. So possibly even looking at a continuous glucose monitor, a little patch. It took me a little while to do that myself, but ever since I did it, probably right maybe around the last time we last talked, Dr. J, I do it every year now, 1 to 2 months, as a reset and a curiosity to make sure I know what food is doing to my sugars. You don't want to have massive glucose bumps, because then insulin follows, then neuroinflammation. It's also anti-cancer, a lot of things for regulating your sugar balances in your body. Environmental toxicity, so we test for that. We look at heavy metals also in that category. When you look at mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and lead, some recent research came out, it wasn't 2024. My team here kind of forwarded some methylation data for levels of metals influencing your own stem cell expression in your body, and having it low levels of metals to help regulate histamine and methylation process, which is a detox pathway to allow your own stem cells to do their job better. So again, this level of toxicity, environmental toxicity, is such a big player. looking at mold, I'll kind of put mold, environmental toxicity, and an infection category there at the third bucket, but I'll talk about it here in the first bucket because, half of the buildings in North America have had some water damage, and mold is pretty ubiquitous in our environment. So just because you're exposed to mold doesn't mean it's a problem. However, if you have the genetic predisposition for problems with it, so there's an HLA array that you can get in your blood, and or looking at your genetics, you are more sensitive to molds. And so we have to rule them in, rule them out. If you have any like chronic fatigue or brain fog, you might want to consider, if you've already gone down, like, okay, it's not thyroid, it's not B vitamins, you want to consider maybe it's mold. So environmental toxicity, you can check that on the white blood cell differential in the blood work. Trying to think in that environmental toxicity front, any questions there? I know I'm just kind of stream of consciousness with you, Dr. J.
No, I love it because I didn't want to interrupt you because I'm like, okay, he's got a good flow. We can hear like all the info. Like, a lot of what I get is like, all right, what's your favorite testing? What do you like to use for micronutrient? What do you like to use for looking at toxins? What are your favorite companies or whatnot?
Yeah, so on the metal front, I've really been with Doctor's Data. There was David Quigg, he's retired, but he was their kind of controller and just super brilliant toxicologist. And they've carried on. So our database, I should talk about that. This is the age of big data, and really seeing, after 25 years of practice and having an electronic medical records, pretty static, even though it's electronic, we're really looking to accelerate the change, and we created a Prometheus AI based off of our data. So having the same testing has been very beneficial because we're comparing apples to apples rather than bouncing around. So I like that we do a pre and a post challenge test. I don't like the hair analysis. I know a lot of people would want to arm wrestle me on that. I used to split test. So when I first started practice, I was a preschool teacher before getting into medicine. And so I treated a lot of children, especially on the spectrum. And there was a metal burden correlated there with kids on the spectrum. In particular, I found that they have trouble eliminating metals out of their body. And so we would split test hair analysis and urine challenge test. And the hair analysis would show nothing. And then the urine challenge would show, hey, you're positive for metal toxicology here. So I just reverted to, we'll just do challenge tests. So we do a pre and a post. So that pre-test gives us a mineral analysis as well in the urine of an array of essential minerals. We're not testing in the serum, in the blood, red blood cell, magnesium. You can get that in the blood, but we're looking to kind of streamline it for people so it's not just, I find a lot of integrated functional medicine testing or providers treat tests and not people. So we've taken a thorough history, looking at diet, diary, nutritional analysis. Pretty much everyone, I'm started working on my diet in 1996. I'm still working on my diet. It's a work in progress, right? So it's not perfect, but we're all working towards the state of nirvana with nutrition. So we do the pre and the post testing.
Okay.
I do a urine test for cortisol. So a lot of times stress plays a role in that trauma component. So that second bucket, when we look at mental, emotional, physical, or ancestral trauma, that's the piece of nervous system is not settled. And, daily life, the headlines, the sky is falling because of AI. All of these things create stress on our system. And if we're in stress, like if you watch mainstream media, you're put into stress because, one, I think you're easier to control because you're not accessing your frontal lobes. You're back in your limbic and amygdala, the reptilian brain, which is reactionary, waiting for that shoe to drop, maybe trouble getting to sleep, staying asleep, waking at 3 a.m., really wired but tired feeling. So we look, there's a diurnal variation of cortisol throughout the day. It should spike in the morning and then decrease throughout the day. That's a regulated adrenal gland. Everybody's talking the vagus nerve these days, and from The Body Keeps the Score to Amy Apkin's book, The Biology of Trauma. Great work. And awesome pathways at healing nervous system, but that's a piece of the puzzle. Of course, if you had, a lot of adults don't identify with trauma, whether it be capital T or little t, but we do know from the adverse childhood experiences, the ACE scores in North America, really no one gets out of here alive. It is a traumatic event of life, this learning environment we find ourselves in. And then to make that job a little tougher, you look at ancestry, might not be your trauma, but it could be your great, 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 great grandmother's trauma. Maybe it was the, potato famine out of Ireland, or Holocaust survivors out of Nazi Germany. There was a great famine in Montreal that a lot of research is coming out. They had a deep freeze and people went into starvation mode because they couldn't get the food delivered there. And now they're looking 3-4 generations post, and there was epigenetic changes that happened to their great, 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 great grandparents. And that's expressing itself now genetically on their platform. So that's made our job a lot harder, really tracking that down. So we do tie that into urine metabolites with cortisol, looking at how are the hormones getting balanced. So we get the hormones in the blood work, we get hormone metabolites in a urine test. That one, we're also assessing that phase 1 route of elimination on the liver. We also get a organic acid test on that as well, looking at B12, B6, dopamine. There's a marker called 8OH for environmental toxicity. If there's any environmental toxicity creating any genetic damage for you today, then you have to, that kind of opens up a new pathway. Like, we got to investigate what is causing that. And then we do a microbiome test as well. So looking at that gut-brain axis, there is tremendous amount of research coming out around patterns in the gut microbiome and the influence on brain health and other health, by the way. But looking at if you have a leaky gut or inflammation in the bowel, that is gapping your tight junctures of the bowel, which then creates complexes into your blood that ramps up inflammation that goes to your brain, creates a leaky blood-brain barrier, and that leads to neuroinflammation. So that gut-brain axis needs to be assessed as well. That could be from environmental toxicity. It could be from diet, nutritional issues creating inflammation, maybe some allergies or sensitivities to food. Could be from the glyphosate from non-organic food. So we do recommend folks eating the Environmental Working Group. They do a great job of the Dirty Dozen every year of at least do those 12 vegetables and fruits as organic minimally. Looking at seed oils as well. Seed oils get oxidized and damage mitochondria function. So that's in the trauma front. And then we look at that third category of infections. So there's this, if you go to PubMed and type in molecular mimicry for Parkinson's, you find hypothyroidism, so functional hypothyroidism. You find viruses, Epstein-Barr, cytomegalo, herpes simplex virus, I think eventually we'll see the COVID virus on there as well for that post-viral syndrome. I've seen a lot of acceleration from COVID vaccine and COVID virus, creating that neuroinflammation and kind of pushing people into early cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, all of the atypical Parkinson's conditions like multiple systems atrophy, progressive supranuclear palsy. I mean, these things just roll off the tongue, right? So those are the three big buckets, and those are the testing. So we've got environmental toxicity testing. We're testing cortisol hormone levels. We're looking at the microbiome, and then we're also doing a full comprehensive blood work panel that really is looking for that molecular mimicry, but then your vitamin D status. Vitamin D is not named well. It's more than just a vitamin. It's a pre-hormone precursor. It's anti-cancer. It's an epigenetic change agent. So you want that to be really at an optimal level too. So those three big buckets, those are the testing. What do you got?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people are like, okay, that's a lot of testing. And obviously you're testing the person in front of you, not just doing all of them just to do them.
Right.
Is
well, so one component on that is I know it is a lot of testing, and a lot of people ask me, like, what can I take, doctor? And I think it's the wrong question. So I did put a compendium of nootropics, which are substances that help brain health. But it's a shotgun American approach. Like, oh, if some is good, more is better. And really, I like the Chinese philosophy of the zheng of the formula or direction. There's an emperor, empress, generals, and assistants, everybody to move in a certain direction. And less is more because your liver has to process it. Your innate intelligence has to understand, where are we going? And so you really want to look at the precision. And I think it's worth it to, it's not there's a minimum detect phase is what I call it in the Eckel protocol, which is those are the base minimum. Now, there are some specialty tests that I think about for people. So there are plasmalogens. So I've got Dan Goodenow wrote a book probably 5 years ago called Breaking Alzheimer's, and pretty dramatic title, but it's all about plasmalogens. Now, what are plasmalogens? I did not learn about these in medical school. They are 25% of the cell wall, every cell wall, and it's basically, there's over 400 papers, probably more at this point, because that was 5 years ago, linking low plasmalogens to all states of neurodegeneration. Now, I don't start with this test. Some say, well, why not? But, there is a limit of testing, and I am assuming most people are deficient in them. However, it depends on where you are in the gradient of diagnosis, how severe, how far progressed. If dementia Alzheimer's is your worry, I would consider doing a prodrome sciences test. It's plasmalogen testing, because this is basically brain food. Now, Dan was very wise. I got to talk to him about right as he was publishing 2 seminal papers, and he presented at the World Alzheimer's Conference in Denver. I believe it was 21 or 22. And he showed, can you increase low plasmalogens in the blood? The answer is yes. And it just happened that everyone that had low plasmalogens was somewhere on the continuum of mild cognitive impairment, dementia, Alzheimer's, somewhere on that continuum. They all 100% moved down the ladder to less severe to no disease status with adequate plasmalogens in their blood. Now, so that's pretty wild that people haven't really heard about it, because it was pretty significant finding. So it is, it's worth looking at, especially if that's one of your concerns, right? It can be reversed with adequate nutrition or nutritionals. So that's plasmalogens is one of those kind of add-on tests that I think about. I also think about mitochondria testing. So we know all of these neurodegenerative states, the mitochondria, if you remember back to 9th grade science, it's the kidney bean shaped organelle in the cell. Don't glaze over just yet. It's just the energy factory. And so you can actually measure functionally what's happening with the mitochondria. Are they efficient? Are they getting taxed by oxidation or free radicals or reactive oxidative species? And then there can be some interventions from that too. So those are, a couple. There are other specialty labs that we'll put in, probably too detailed for our conversation here, but just know there are a lot of options that a clinician can go in. Now, again, I've seen folks that have been to the concierge doctors and they get $10,000 worth of testing, and the testing starts to contradict each other. And it's like, well, if you would have just taken a thorough history, probably could have streamlined this and then gotten a better path or program plan for you. So I know I evaded the question on what to do, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense. And yes, that is, one of the complaints I hear from a lot of folks. Like, if I go to this specialist, that means I'm going to have all this testing. And like I myself included have seen conflicting tests. And then it's
Right.
like, all right, what do I do here? How do I deal with this? Now, interesting you mentioned the plasmalogens, because I had interviewed Dane like right around that time too, probably not too long
Yeah.
after I interviewed you before COVID. And
Yeah.
one of the interesting things that I'm curious about in your practice, because my practice has shifted quite a bit. Now it does seem like we're entering into the realm of many people, from the hormone realm that I used to specialize in and still do. I'm going into the dementia and Parkinson's and what's going on neurologically. So going back to the plasmalogens, what have you seen in your practice in terms of results? Is it mimicking what Dane's getting? Like how is it showing up in your practice?
I see it more. So it's not, it's a part of a program and it's less of the one trick pony. Now, I
Sure.
think the way that Dan does it, he has an inpatient facility up in Calgary. They're pumping like gobs of this stuff into people. He's getting different results than what we're seeing, but I see it more as a complementary of retesting, making sure we're getting adequate levels in the blood. I haven't seen it be the miracle cure, but I definitely see it contributing to improvement of cognition.
Okay. Well, and obviously, I mean, everyone who's listening, I'm not one to ever say there's going to be that one magic pill, because there isn't ever. Like, stop looking for that. But when it comes to looking at advanced therapies, because a lot of people are talking to me now that we know about stem cell, now that we know more about IV therapy, a lot of folks will come to me and go, okay, so my toxic levels are off the charts. I'll give you, for example, a lot of folks I see in Wisconsin, farmers. So now we've got the mold toxin from the silos, from the corn, and we've got on top of that, we've got glyphosate, we've got, all of them. And so what I'll get is they're like, okay, I need a detox. I need IV therapy. I would love for you to speak to like your protocols around detox, and you probably are getting there anyway. So I'm going to just let you kind of.
So there's multiple levels to detoxification. So I think when most people hear detox, they think, am I going to be on the toilet all day? That's a colon cleanse, right? And I like to move upstream to the liver, because the liver is the detox organ. Obviously, you've got to have a bowel movement every day. So we start with the 5 emunctories, which is just the terrain of how your body naturally detoxes. The skin is the largest organ. So doing dry skin brushing, brushing from the peripheral before a shower, you're sloughing off the old tissue, but you're also stimulating lymph flow with that. And you're going towards the heart. So from all of the appendages towards the heart, just like 3 to 5 minutes of dry skin brushing. Breathing is the breath, the exchange of oxygen to carbon dioxide, making sure you're breathing properly. Like, so many of us have learned to hold our guts in and just breathe through our, like when I ask people to take a deep breath, their chest goes up and down. It's like, no, they need to take a deep belly breath, because the deep belly breath, it contracts the diaphragm, pulls on cranial nerve 10, the vagus nerve, and puts the body into a parasympathetic activity, which is rest and digest and repair. So that's how the body repairs, is getting into that parasympathetic activity. So breath work actually helps with that. Box breathing, like 4, 4, 4, 4. So you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. It works for elite military crews to regulate their nervous system. It should work for us Janes and Joes in the general population. So lots of different breath work avenues to pursue. Hydration. So the kidneys, third root of elimination. You've got to have enough water to float your boat. So it sounds much more elegant in pinyin Chinese than that statement for hydration, to have adequate bowel movements, but also to flush toxins from your system. So you've got to have good hydration. So one test for that is the skin turgor. If you pinch your skin, it should just go right back down. If it tense up, you're running dehydrated. Oftentimes you could see that on blood work too, looking at kidney function labs as well. Then, you've got the sweating. You want to make sure you're doing some sauna, especially because of the organophosphates and the pesticide class. You've got to get detox going. And then circulation, you got to get your heart rate up. So there is a lot of research on high intensity workouts. One of my favorite books is called The 1 Minute Workout. It's more than 1 minute, but there was an exercise physiologist out of Toronto, pinched for time, raising a young family and saying, gosh, this is ridiculous. I'm an exercise physiologist and I don't exercise. So he wanted to find the minimum effective dose. And in the book, he goes into a 4-minute warm up, 1 minute of just go as hard as you can, and then 4-minute cool down. And you basically do 3 to 4 of those cycles. So it's more than just 1 minute, but it's a catchy title. But that's all it takes, really, is increasing your heart rate will increase brain-derived neurotropic factor, also increasing circulation. So we know in Chinese medicine, circulation is the key of what goes into your blood, and then how do you get it to the cells. Movement is one of those things that does it. So, making sure your emunctories are open and flowing, that's the baseline, and everyone can do that. The other non-sexy stuff is, looking at, for brain specific, you want to have adequate rest. So I do recommend kind of tracking this a little bit, not to the point of becoming neurotic about it or outsourcing your agency, but looking at, okay, are you actually getting into deep sleep? What is your percentage of REM? What's your total sleep? Are you sleeping enough? No one thinks about smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day in this conversation, right? I mean, some people still do, just over in Europe, and gosh, they smoke like chimneys over there.
It's interesting. Yeah.
I know it is. But that said, not having adequate rest or sleep is like the equivalent stress on the body of smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. So, having, again, non-sexy, but are you sleeping enough, right? So many people are busy or just can't do it, or they, it's their me time or whatever those things are. But, if you're running a deficit day in and day out, that is definitely wearing on you. Going to bed after 10 p.m., and I'm guilty of that, starts burning your growth hormone. So, that's a kind of the anti-aging molecule of your body. So, you've got to, there are consequences to decisions, let's say. So, but knowing what you're doing, I think, is the first step, is having the awareness of, okay, I'm making a choice today to do this, and I'm going to make up for it later. But if it's just habitual and not conscious, what you don't know may be harming you.
Absolutely. I think, a lot of the foundations are things we skip over for the new sexy, cool, IV therapy, whatnot protocols.
Sure.
I think one of the things that I wanted to definitely ask you about is when someone's a little bit more advanced in this, we've got some sundowners kind of things going on. We have difficulty getting them to go to bed at a regular hour. Maybe the family's fighting a little bit with someone. What kind of things do you recommend in that case when you're finding that whoever you are working with, whether you're a practitioner listening to this, or if you've got family members, you can't get them to bed on time? What do you do?
Well, I mean, that's a huge, I wish that there was one fix there, but that's the whole system issue,
Yeah.
right? Like that. So that was probably a decade or two prior to really get at underlying causes. But that said, I have seen folks in that scenario. I had a retired pharmacist come see us in Portland, and he was not able to do 1+1 math. And this is a guy in his prime. He was able to do multiplication factors in his head, right? All kinds of complex math problems just in his head, doing, with medication. So pretty significant high stakes work. After coming through our program, he was able to do his multiplication factors again. His wife was in tears saying, "We've got him back. He's playing with the grandkids. He's back at the dinner table. His sense of humor is back." Still don't trust him with the checking book, but really he got, like, he was oriented ×3. When he first started, couldn't really remember my name, didn't know where he was, came in a wheelchair. 1 month later, he's oriented ×3, making jokes, doing math. It is possible, but we did an EEG. We're looking at past, are there imbalances in a different region of the brain? Can we put some information back in there? There's a therapy that we do is called PRTMS. So it's personalized repetitive transcranial magnetic stim. So when somebody is advanced, that would be an advanced symptom in my book and in yours. You need more input into the system. So it's like the 800-pound gorilla. What do we need to actually do over here to balance it out? So we really get into, well, how do we significantly decrease the inflammation on their brain? I'm guessing that person probably has a sweet tooth. So you're looking at hormone imbalances, you're looking at dietary imbalances, roots of inflammation acutely, and then are there stimuluses that you can put in with, like, hyperbaric therapies, right? Red light beds. We are doing a home care program now with nutritional imbalances, bioregulators, and some devices. Like, we'll use the brain tap if they'll wear it, right? So sometimes they get to that point where sometimes they'll get to that point where they're just so far advanced that they're not compliant to do those things. Yeah.
My next big question, because I think, when we're dealing with sleep, that's a huge factor. There's a lot going on there, but it is one of the things that I tend to see. The other big thing that I really wanted to get an answer on from you, just to get your take on it before we tell everybody about your program and your book and everything, is that a lot of times folks will come into me and they're having trouble with balance. They're having trouble with mobility. And there aren't a lot of places that are going to be able to help that are, that, and I'm talking more Parkinson's right now, but there's not a lot of physical therapists that know exactly what to do in that case.
Right.
And of course, on my end, I want them to exercise, right? I want them to get their heart rate up, and it's like, how am I going to do this unless I get them in a pool, or something? So what you said you had a home care program. Do you have folks working with, like, the fitness side of things? And
We
what do you
do. So
suggest?
we have a really big online program with coaching. So we're supporting people every week in and week out. So we do a balance board for folks. Dan Metcalf is my main coach with that. And you can do that even if you've lost the ability for motion and your balance is poor. You can do it sitting. And then we also do Qigong. Lori Regan is the past dean of Chinese medicine out of Portland, Oregon, and lineage holder of the Jinjiang School of Qigong. And so she is my main coach working on Qigong, which Qi is energy, Gong is work. You can also do that sitting or standing. Very simple motions to get your Qi or energy moving, which then moves your blood. So the coaching really has been an enhancement. I think we have over 1,500 people in that right now. It's growing. It's a whole community of people making different choices to get different results.
Yeah.
And we need that support because, I'm asking people to change their brain, and that means they have to become a new person tomorrow. And that takes some work and encouragement and support. The other two coaches we do a nutrition coach, Dr. Erica Siegel, out of Portland, Oregon, has an amazing 2-set volume of nutrition. I've got the Eckel diet in conjunction with that. Again, to help people make different choices to get different results. And then we have Christina Marlette, who does our mindset and also body awake yoga. So again, another movement yoga with regards to mindset, massive shifts needed there for folks. And then we also have physical therapists who specialize in craniosacral therapy and pelvic floor. They're also training on Monday mornings on different exercises for getting body awareness and getting that movement, because it's something that needs to happen every day. And so having that support, I'm looking for, usually I'll have a red pom-pom here. It's been moved, but we do cheer with a red pom-pom. So imagine I have that right there. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, fun stuff. And I mean, I think those are all the components you would want in a program. And that's something that, a lot of folks like, regular docs aren't going to be able to offer all that support. And this is why coming to a specialized program is incredibly important. And because it sounds like you've got a lot of folks virtual, folks could see you virtual. They wouldn't have to necessarily come in for.
That's right. Yeah, we start with a coaching program. So it's a coaching relationship, not a provider relationship, up to a point of if we can get you qualified to come out for a brain camp. So we do see folks in all 50 states and worldwide, really, in a coaching relationship. So, and then invite folks to Utah to become a patient, where we do a week-long program called a brain camp. And then we do a continued care after brain camp, follow-ups at 1, 3, 5, 7 months, retesting, and retweaking and aligning to get the results. So, what gets measured gets changed. And we're really looking for folks that are wanting to make a different choice to get a different result. So it's definitely you're stepping out into the unknown with the Dr. Greg in Park City, Utah, and his staff and team. But I think what you're seeing is, we're starting to publish and transparently what our results are, and which is beating what you get in the system, because they're just kind of managing your disease or illness there.
Yeah, yeah. And if someone is on medications, you're okay with
Yeah.
Obviously scope of practice. We
Right.
won't jump you out of that, but
Yeah.
you're okay if someone comes in on meds and perhaps, maybe they make the choice with their doc to wean off of them and things of that
Correct.
nature.
Correct.
Very cool. Very cool. And your book, let's talk about that real quick so folks know that they can grab that as well for some
Yeah.
support there too.
Got it right there. It's my second book on the topic, Defying Parkinson's. It's on Amazon. It's a bestseller in 5 categories. In fact, we even got it in neuroanatomy, neurology, and brain disease. #1 bestseller.
Nice.
It has a ton of references. So the bibliography, I get often asked, well, where's the evidence, Dr. Eckel, for this? And I'm like, look, we're going off of the research. It's just you're not reading the right publications. So we've got it in there. We've got the phases of the Eckel protocol, lots of practical advice that you could put in. I want it to be a reference manual, like to live on the coffee table, not to be put on the bookshelf, but people are referencing it often to see, okay, what's next? What else can I do? Yeah.
So huge. So huge. Well, thank you so much for coming back on. I sincerely appreciate it. And I can't wait to get this one out for folks to learn more and work on the prevention aspect of things too, since that is also something that's really important these days as well.
Thank you, Dr. J, for having me back, and always great to see you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Hey, fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.